So today I'm deviating from the plan of doing my trip quilt first, and I'm working on one of my little side UFO projects that I had mentioned I might do. My sewing room has gotten very messy. We've had a lot of things we've been doing lately, and I felt like I needed to work on something that I could just actually finish. So today I'm gonna try to whip out this little baby, see if I can get it done and get it hung. Also, my winter quilt is still hanging up in my entryway, and this is very nice and springy, and it's about time, I think, to have something springy. Okay, first little bit. I think that looks nice. I was going to check the time and write it down. Okay, I'm going to have to move some of these pins because they are too close to the edge. I have to say, partly I am curious, checking the time to see how long this takes me, and partly I don't want to know, because if I've been waiting and putting this off for years and I could have gotten it done in half an hour, I'm going to want to kick myself. Wondering if I should have left that open on this one, but since that's what I started doing, going around it, I will go around it. Let's see. All my little quilting lines. This is a little further apart than I would normally do quilting, but since it's just a little tiny wall hanging, I don't think it's going to matter. So at this point, I just have to I'm going to tie off my ends and get rid of those. I need to trim the quilt so that I can get the binding. I need to make binding strips. I need to see if I have more of this fabric or something similar for binding, or maybe the brown. And also I found my safety pin. One of them has this little teeny tiny button on it. I'm not sure why. So, gotta figure out what to do with my teeny tiny button. So I'll return when I get a little more done. Okay, one quick thing I wanted to show here. A lot of people, when you start machine quilting, they will tell you to put your stitch length at 0 or almost 0 and do just a couple like super tiny stitches real close together. I've never liked doing that. I always feel like I was making a little clump of knots that you could always see and feel. I didn't like it. And I took a Craftsy class from Leah Day on Craftsy, duh. And she actually just starts stitching and then she goes back and ties off her ends. I also like that because I'm always afraid that the others are going to come out. I don't know why, because they are impossible to pull out if you're trying to get rid of them. Anyway, I've just taken a page out of her book, and so she just ties the ends off together and then threads a needle with the little ends. And then you go in basically where one of the stitches is. You go in between the layers of fabric and the batting. And then you just pop that knot in. And then you can trim off your end. And hide that. And I feel like this is closer to hand quilting, the way you would end. You make a little quilter's knot or start quilter's knot and pop it in. I already had a knot made there. I just like the fact that it's actually tied and secured. I like the fact that there isn't anything that you can see on my quilt or feel as far as where the starting and stopping is. So that's the method I used. I know it's a little unconventional, but I really like it. Again, just right in there, run it into the thread or into the batting, pop the knot in. This does take a little bit longer because if you have just done super tight stitches, you can just go and snip your threads off. But again, I'm always paranoid those are going to come out, so I like this method. There, got all those ends off. Now it's ready to trim off the excess. Okay, so time to choose binding, and here's what I had done. I measured to figure out how much I would need, and then I looked for my fabric scraps to see what I have of this fabric. I have plenty of this, which would probably be the obvious choice, but for me, I just don't like binding to be light. I feel like it should be dark to frame it, which is probably silly, but so I found this much brown, and I did consider like, oh, I could make binding, bias binding, but there's not going to be enough. There's no way that would work. So not the brown, unfortunately. Same problem with the light pink. This is it. And this fabric that I have for the edge is not going to work for two reasons. Number one, I don't have enough of it. And also when I opened it up to see how much I had, you can see this has some fading from sunlight exposure, I'm guessing, or just age, because this is really, really old. This is probably from early to mid 90s. So I do have some of this fabric, and I was excited. It's like, well, that'll work. I would prefer the leafy fabric, but when I put it up here, I realized it's not exactly the same color, which you don't really notice from here to here, but when they're right next to each other, you do notice it, and that kind of bugs me. So I finally decided I need to go in a different direction or just use the light, and I didn't want to use the light. So I decided I would try green. And at first I found a green that I thought went really well with my thread, but I don't like the stars. I think that's too busy. And so then I came up with, I have some of this green, which I think looks nice, and then this green. So I like this one. I think it looks a little better, and I like the fact that there's less variation in the color tone. So this is going to be my binding. So I need to get that cut and stitched together, and then I can start putting my binding around. Okay, that's stitched, ready to fold that in half. Okay, have my binding made, and I'm getting ready to pin it down. I'm playing binding chicken again. I don't know if I have enough to go all the way around, but we're gonna try it, and then as I get to the end of it, if I don't have enough, I'll worry about it then. For now, I'm just gonna start. And I am going to stitch this on by machine on the back, and I'm going to fold it over and stitch it by machine on the front because, again, it's just a little wall hanging. I want to get it done. It's been sitting here for way too many years. I don't know how many. Somewhere I'm sure I wrote down when I started this, but off the top of my head, nope, I don't really know. I know the quilt that inspired this design, and by the way, this isn't a pattern, this is something that, again, I kind of made my own. This border was inspired by a pattern that I did do by Bare Roots. I loved the kind of viney feel of it. The one that I had done was actually fall leaves, but I decided to kind of go off of that and make my own design, and so I did that. And then again, this was just because I had a little bit of these fabrics left and I really liked them and I wanted to do a pink and brown quilt. So this just kind of grew into this, and so I know that I did this after I did that quilt. I'll have to check the year of that quilt and I'll see if I can figure it out. So anyway, I'm going to stitch this binding on here now. I think that's enough of a tail to join. Okay, I have to stop here for a minute. First I'm going to see if there's any chance that I'm going to win ball baked chicken or if I need to cut more fabric. Oh, so close. Okay, I think I'm going to need another strip for that. But the other thing is I don't have hanging loops, so I have to decide, am I going to try to do hanging loop here real quick, or am I going to add that later? I know I'm going to do a label later, but I have to see about the hanging loop. Okay, so I pinned to see how it was going to come out, and it looks like I'm 3/4 of an inch short. So I'm going to cut another small strip, and then I don't want to join it right here and then have, you know, a seam and a seam. So I'm going to come back to this seam here, and I'm going to take that out, and then I will put a small strip in here to join, which will give me plenty of room on the other side, and it will make it easy to do that without having extra seams. And this will be far enough apart. It will be fine. It will be on the top, which I won't be excited about, but it will be fine. So that's what I'm going to do next, is unstitch this. Very carefully so that I don't stretch the bias here, because I want to be able to reuse both of these. Okay, so I'm gonna go get my next little piece cut to stick in there and get that joined. There, now I have enough to join. I just need to get this pinned and join that, and then I can stitch the front. Okay, got the binding pinned down. Just have to stitch it. Okay. And there we go. Your quilt is done. A UFO is done. Yay! Now I just need to hang it up. Ta-da! Got it done.